Alright, take your seat, folks. Let's get right into it. You are currently stationed in Sector 4 of the Heavy Containment Zone. That low industrial hum you hear vibrating beneath your boots right now? That's the primary power grid keeping our bulkhead sealed, and quite frankly, it is the only thing standing between us and the anomalies housed in this sector. I'm here to give you your classified intelligence briefing on the Euclid-class entity designated SCP-4158. Consider this your operational explainer. What we're dealing with today requires your absolute, undivided attention. Here is the roadmap for today's briefing. We'll cover special containment procedures, biological anomalies, discovery and initial recovery, civilian exploitation, and finally, our threat assessment.
Starting with Section 1, Special Containment Procedures. Listen, strict adherence to Sector 4 protocols is literally the only thing preventing a catastrophic breach.
Let's talk specs. The containment parameters here are stark, and they are unyielding. SCP-4158 requires an 8 by 10 meter cell made of cold, reinforced concrete right here in heavy containment. As for hardware, we're talking a 5 meter trough bolted to the east wall. Now, while constant monitoring isn't strictly dictated by the asset's behavior, our protocols mandate physical checks a minimum of 3 times daily. Routine is our armor here, people. Do not deviate.
Now, the authorized diet for SCP-4158 is unnatural. Frankly, it's grotesque. This anomaly doesn't just graze in a pasture. To satisfy its consumption habits, personnel have to fill its trough with a mix of hay, wood, raw beef, and, bricks. It consumes organic and inorganic matter completely indiscriminately. But here's the kicker. SCP-4158 produces absolutely zero excrement. None. Every ounce mass it consumes is immediately converted into rapid physical growth. Because we can't halt its growth by limiting its diet, weekly maintenance is absolutely mandatory. You'll be following a very visceral 4-step procedure. First, perform a pre-shearing X-ray to map out the anomalous tissue. Second, you physically shear the excess biological mass right off the entity's body. Third, conduct a post-shearing X-ray to confirm it's stabilized. And fourth, you have to incinerate all of the resulting sheared meat. Down in the sublevels, that incinerator burns with a wet metallic copper tone during this process. Make sure no biological material leaves that room.
Moving on to Section 2, Biological Anomalies. Let's look at what this thing actually is. 3.4 meters. That is the regulated height of SCP-4158, coupled with a length of 5 meters. Now, on the surface, it looks like a bovine creature, but trust me, the similarities isn't exactly there. It has this massive, bulbous head, entirely lacking standard cow features. It's partially blind, its skin is highly abnormal too. It's translucent and tears easily into the slightest tension. But despite all that, and despite being fully sentient, it's entirely docile. It just ignores our personnel during cleaning and feeding. So what happens if we mess up? This illustrates the horrific consequences of operational failure. Regulated mass that we shear from the entity just tests as standard non-anomalous USDA beef. But left unregulated, new features spontaneously form. During one test, we let it reach 8.5 meters tall, and it rapidly generated 7 extra legs, multiple sets of genitalia, and 3 random tongues. We permanently suspended that testing the moment spontaneous neural tissue started to generate. Section 3. Discovery and Initial Recovery. You're probably wondering, how on earth did an entity like this exist completely undetected out in civilian territory? Well, the timeline is almost chillingly mundane. Picture it, the freezing morning of December 16, 2004, in Crutzen, Indiana. Multiple civilian calls start flooding local lines about a large cow with mange just wandering down Highway 17. By 9:39 a.m., local animal control escalates it to the police. Luckily, a Foundation plant intercepted the comms, and intercept teams from Site 64 deployed immediately. By 12:46 p.m., the anomaly was secured and transported to Site 64 without putting up a single ounce resistance. Of course, to maintain operational secrecy, Class A amnestics were deployed immediately at the scene. For the newer personnel in the room, these are powerful memory-altering agents. We successfully wiped the incident from the minds of the responding officers and enforced a rock-solid cover story. The mange-ridden cow was simply put down. The civilian threat was neutralized. Or so we thought. Section 4. Civilian Exploitation. Fair warning, folks, this is where the details get deeply, deeply disturbing. We're going to talk about a civilian slaughterhouse operating under the name Butcher's Block. The crucial piece of the puzzle is how Butcher's Block actually got the anomaly.
Interrogations with an employee named Rory Gilson revealed a totally parasitic origin. 9 years prior, the facility bought a pregnant cow. According to Gilson, the calf, our SCP-4158, violently burst straight through the mother's chest. It had no umbilical cord, it was motionless, it was visually horrifying, so the workers dragged it out assuming it was just a stillborn freak of nature. But then, it woke up. Obviously they couldn't sell it, so they decided to just execute it. I'm going to read Rory Gilson's interrogation transcript to you directly. So, we got the cattle gun and we placed it right between its beady fucking eyes and pulled the trigger. There was a thunk sound, but nothing happened. The weapon broke. They physically could not execute the entity. They tried slitting its throat, then they completely removed its throat, but the thing barely bled and didn't react at all.
Since they couldn't kill it, the workers made an incredibly morbid operational decision. They butchered the living entity down to a near skeleton right where it stood, and then packed that anomalous meat in with their standard beef shipments to recoup their financial loss. But within days, they discovered the impossible. The flesh regenerated completely. Those workers capitalized on this, using this docile entity as a source of infinite, non-toxic meat for almost a decade.
But the situation at Butcher's Block degraded from mere exploitation into outright fanaticism. Take a look at this quote from the slaughterhouse manager, Jeff Fine. Contrast the cold, hard logic of Foundation containment with his sheer madness. He feels no pain. You can't kill him. He provides for us. He is our savior. Fine's interrogation laid out this sickening, cult-like ritual he started performing nightly. First, he'd open the entity's pen in the dark. Second, he would take off his clothing to achieve quote-unquote purity. Third, he lay directly beneath the regenerating mass. And finally, he would drink the blood pumping directly from its exposed heart, treating it like some twisted religious blessing. And here is perhaps the absolute most disturbing fact of this entire briefing. Foundation psychological studies conclusively proved that Jeff Fine's worship was not caused by any anomalous mind-altering effects. Our own personnel show zero abnormal religious behaviors around SCP-4158. The anomaly wasn't controlling Fine's mind. His descent into blood-drinking worship was entirely 100% human madness. Finally, Section 5, Threat Assessment. We'll wrap up by looking at the status of the cover-up and the unresolved variables that demand your ongoing vigilance. First off, the civilian site has been completely sterilized. Class E amnestics were heavily administered to all the remaining workers and livestock. Butcher's Block was permanently shuttered under the undeniable pretense of extreme health code violations, and the employees involved were locked up for malpractice. The entire operation has been erased from the public record, but we have one deeply unsettling variable remaining from Fine's final interrogation. This entity sat perfectly contained in a sturdy pen for 9 years. Yet on the night it was discovered, it broke out. Jeff Fine insisted that SCP-4158 didn't just wander off in a daze. He claimed it deliberately escaped with a specific goal in mind. For a supposedly mindless, docile creature, that implies a hidden intelligence or a motive that we absolutely do not understand yet. Which brings us to the ultimate question, the one that should keep you sharp and wide awake while you're monitoring the heavy containment zone. We know the meat regenerates. We know what it becomes when left unchecked. But who was the unidentified man that sold that pregnant cow to Butcher's Block 9 years ago? The true origin of this nightmare is still out there in the dark. Keep your eyes open, personnel. Briefing adjourned. This concludes today's briefing. If you wish to maintain your current clearance level and ensure continued access to the Versarian database, a subscription to this channel is mandatory. Secure your connection by leaving a like on this file, and log your requests in the comments section below to dictate which anomaly we unseal next. Stay vigilant and expect your next set of logs every day. Secure, contain, protect.